Good evening and welcome, commissioners, applicants, and interested parties to the January 22nd, 2026 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. My name is Chris McIntyre, and I am the chair of the Cohasset Conservation Commission, and I will be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 260 of the Cohasset Bylaws governing wetlands protection, and Chapter 263 of the Cohasset Bylaws governing stormwater management. The Conservation Commission meeting is now open and in session and is being held via Zoom. Public questions or comments are encouraged to be submitted in writing using the Zoom Q&A feature and should include your name and address. The chair may invite verbal comments where clarification would be helpful. Comments should be limited to 3 minutes. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission is the town's conservation agent, Charlotte Pechtel, as well as the Conservation Administrative Clerk, Melinda Wall. I will now take a roll call vote of commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Steve Magnell, absent. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Sanji Fernando is absent. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, present.
and Chris McIntyre present. Tonight we have a quorum of 4 commissioners. Hearings continued to February 5th, 2026 include NOI 25-21 for 33 and 37 Stanton Road, 294 and 300 South Main Street, and 33 Cedar Lane for ecological restoration and removal of invasive Phragmites, as well as NOI 25-19 and stormwater permit 25-10 for 40 Pond Street to build a single-family home driveway stormwater mitigation system within the 100-foot buffer zone, and NOI 25-20 and stormwater permit 25-11 for 46 Pond Street to also build a single-family home driveway stormwater mitigation system within the 100-foot buffer. Our first public hearing tonight is NOI 25-31 and stormwater permit 25-18 for 159 Atlantic Ave, continued from January 8th, 2026 to raise an existing home and build a home with associated stormwater structures, pool, patio, driveway, and hardscape located partially in the 100. Still says 50, but I believe that's no longer in the 50, to brook and land subject to coastal zone flowage.
Hey guys, do I have everybody?
I believe so.
Yes.
I don't know if I see the Ryans on there. Do you see Mike or
Yeah,
Aaron?
there's a Ryan in the audience. I don't know if that's them.
Well, we can get going anyway. So,
Oh, there
um,
we go. I think they're rejoining.
sure. So for the record, Brendan Sullivan with Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. Here with Sean Papich, landscape architect, Nino DeNuno, builder, um, Ryan, the owner, Matt Brodsky, the attorney. For the project. I will pull up the plans. So since the last meeting, we had the brook delineated as an inland bank. John Zimmer from South River Environmental went out and hung 7 flags to delineate the inland bank as the resource area for the stream that, as you remember, comes out from under the existing driveway and discharges south and eventually down to Treats Pond. He did note that it wasn't identified on the USGS map nor on stream stats. And he doesn't believe it's a perennial river, so it's an intermittent stream. We did take the house, we moved the house a few feet to the north, and we also removed a garage bay on the south side. So now the entire structure is outside of the 50-foot buffer, as well as all the hardscape retaining walls that were previously in the 50-foot buffer. Those have been removed. As you can see, the auto court has been reduced in size. So now there's no new pavement or structure within the 50-foot buffer. We've also reduced the area of the gravel turnaround in front of the existing three-bay garage, detached three-bay garage. That's the pavement area. Reduced that gravel area, and we also included a grass strip in the middle to provide some wheel runs down to the garage. As we noted before, this is going to be used intermittently, not as a primary access for the property. The stormwater system, we reconfigured the infiltration system so to include, we rotated a little bit and made it a little bit narrower and longer to include going over 2 test pits now. And let's see, we also identified some trees to be removed. The large stump we noted is just inside the 100-foot buffer now. And I would say that within the new delineation, it did bring the buffer zones about 3 or 4 feet to our favor, so towards the brook. The intermittent stream, the flags, they're about between 3 and 4 feet apart. The original delineation had the the bank about 7 or 8 feet apart, wide. So that brought the 50 and 100-foot buffer zones to the south. Let's see. So I know you guys are looking for an overlay. So we came up with a few scenarios here. So this one has the existing house shown in gray with the hardscape around it. And you can see the blue dashed lines underneath. That's the proposed structure underneath there with the pool and the patio. Just for reference, the existing structure here, the existing roof area is almost 3,000 square feet. The existing roof area of the roof area of the proposed structure, including the garage, is about 3,430 square feet. So we're really just increasing the footprint of the mass by about 400 feet. So here is another variation of that. We're showing the gray as the proposed, and you can see the blue now is what's existing there today. So you can see how that compares one to the other. Basically putting it a little bit towards the street and rotating a little bit, taking advantage of the views of the harbor while keeping the tree lines intact on either side. Basically, the views go over the tennis court out towards the Cohasset Harbor and the lighthouse. Here's another one basically showing the existing grayed out and the proposed in blue underneath the main house and the garage. And this one's showing a little bit more detail of the plantings, the pool in the back, hardscape, the proposed structure in gray, and the existing in the blue outline underneath. We did include the order of conditions that were granted from the I believe it's 138 across the street from the 2022 filing that rendered this a IVW and a 25-foot associated buffer. And we also have updated landscape plan. And here's Sean's rendering of the site, showing the proposed plantings, trees, and I think I've covered everything. Order conditions. Yeah, I think that was about it.
Thank you. Well, to start, I think, Charlotte, maybe you can provide an update as to your site visit and your conversation with John Zimmer, perhaps on the IVW or the.
Yeah, sure. And sorry, guys, I was going out a couple hours before the meeting, so I didn't have time to call everybody. But walked the site again to look at the flags that John had posted. I don't have concerns with the flag placement. I don't, I agree. It's just an intermittent stream with that inland bank. Doesn't appear to be any bordering vegetated wetland on either side of that inland bank. However, across the street, there does appear to be some sort of pipe that goes under the road, and it's visible. It's like really hard to see, but it's a really thin green. Yeah, so where you're kind of noting, Brendan, it's right there. DPW does seem to think it connects under the road to somewhere on the other side. We're just not fully sure if it's connecting directly to that stream or if it's going somewhere else, but it does appear to be that these two systems could be connected. I talked to John about it, and John said, he hasn't looked at this in, detail, which he's, happy to do if the commission needs to, but he thinks that it would be easier to just consider this connected and, turn this into that bordering vegetated wetland where you extend that 100-foot buffer, which would just go to that 20 to 30 feet of that redone driveway. So it wouldn't change the buffer zones on the bank side. It would just extend that 100-foot buffer, plus or minus, obviously. I'll defer to Brendan on that if you extend that green line from the bank or if you draw your own 100-foot buffer separately there. But yeah, I mean, with that being said, that area in particular on the project, there's an existing driveway that already is there. I don't know if it's easier to see on the schematic. So there's already an existing paved driveway in that particular area within that new 100-foot buffer. And we obviously didn't know that in 2020. The 2020 report did not indicate the IVW system could be connected at the time. And I know this is older than 3 years old, but for reference, we put it on the plan just to understand where all the resource areas were.
Thanks. So there's that piece of it, which we would want to see, updated. Obviously, it doesn't appear that even with the 100-foot buffer that there'll be too much impact, but it's obviously something that we want to see updated on here. And yeah, I think the plan is improved to, remove the structure from the 50. I think I think I still feel that this, site has adequate, more than adequate room to avoid all this impact to the 100 as well. And it's hard for me to, it's up to you to demonstrate that there's going to be no adverse impacts to this system based on what you're proposing here. So, I don't know. I'm looking at the size of this property and not really understanding just based on preference that this, existing footprint is going to be, the existing home footprint is not going to be utilized and they're going to just push it right into the buffer. That's more or less my initial feeling on this. But I'm going to bounce to the next commissioner. Tom, do you have any initial thoughts or questions here?
Yeah, first I'd start by commending Brendan for developing a graphic image that is much easier for us to understand where the old footprint is and where the new one is proposed. And so thank you very much for that. That's great. It's good to see that also that the infiltration system has been reconfigured. You've got test pits at either end of it. That looks far better than it did. I hadn't realized that the status of the wetland across the street had changed. So I guess I would like to see the 50 and 100-foot buffer plotted here to understand what the implications of that are.
Anything else, Tom?
No.
Kathy, questions or comments here?
Just a comment that the comparison chart that is in the plan that shows impervious coverage within the buffer zone summary. And I think it's right on this chart, on this page, right in the bottom left, but I think I see different numbers than what I looked at uh, in the files today. But the point is, even though the numbers are a little different, than what I copied down, that, they started with, the existing, impervious coverage was 4,048 square feet. Then they proposed 3,290 square feet, and the change was a negative 758 square feet. So that's to the betterment of this situation. So I'm just noting that. I have different figures though here. It started different. Maybe that's more updated. But the point is that it changed for the better.
Yeah, so just as an update, so the
Yeah.
0 to 50 foot, the change before this number here was the 1639 was 1490. So that increased to minus 1600. Between the 50 and the 100, this number here used to be 1796, and we got it down to 1881. And the total being the 0 and the 100, before this number was 306 increase. Now we're decreasing by 750 square feet. So that was the difference in these numbers here.
Yeah. So that's a positive.
Well, I mean, I would just note that the impervious going from impervious to pervious with that driveway on the south side is not equivalent in my mind to no adverse impact. There's still going to be cars. There's still going to be driveways. Not like it's being restored to some sort of natural state. Will?
Yeah, I think you guys have been responsive to all our comments. The only thing I wanted to add was to clarify something from the last meeting, probably better explain it, and it has to do with the grading behind the pool or south of the pool. And this is more of a stormwater thing than a wetland thing, but the subcatchment for this area is large, so I don't think it would reflect the velocity in this particular location very well. And I would be concerned that that increase in slope there would increase the velocity of a storm event running off into the neighbor's yard, which is one of the concerns we heard last time. So we won't see that in the calculations because the watershed's so large, but that is a concern of mine. And that's the only one. Thanks.
Is that this area down in here, Will?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean that's this is approximately like a 3-to-1 slope, so it's much flatter in this area up here. Yeah, water is going to run down here, but you see the contours down in here. It's going to kind of channel its way. It's not going to run down here and go up the Lothrop Lane and across the street. It's going to run down this slope, come to the slope down here, get into this wooded area, and then run down along the lawn, probably go over the tennis court, if not over the tennis court, either into this catch basin or further down, and eventually get to this, the other stream that's on site, way off on the eastern portion of the property before it discharges out into the ocean. So yeah, there is a steeper slope here, but it's all going to be, the runoff is still going to be captured and stay on site. It's not going to be running on to Lothrop Lane. In this area, Lothrop Lane is higher than the yard area down in here.
Yeah, I don't see any elevation lines down there, so I wasn't able to tell. So that would be helpful. If it is higher, then that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you can see the 7 here comes and wraps up around in here, so that's creating a channel for the water to run down.
Can you
Oh, I
show-
see the 8 way up there.
Great.
So it's maybe the road is a foot higher than the yard or woods down there. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
it probably is.
Brendan, can you go back to the diagrams the simple diagrams where you're showing the overlap of the building and the driveway here? I think the one to the right maybe is a little bit more effective. Yeah, and zoom in on that. You get some notion of how much pavement already exists there and how that's going to change.
Right. So while this blue dash is the existing driveway that does circle around,
Yeah,
um, it comes around to kind of there's a there's an island in the middle of it here, and then it goes around in front of the existing garage. And obviously the proposed is cutting all this out. This is still going to stay gravel, but we've got the wheel runs down in here, so all this pavement will be gone. And then we're proposing the auto court, getting rid of all this pavement here, auto court, and then the turnaround up here to get um, back out to Atlantic Ave. Um, I can't take full credit for these. The architect put these together, so, but yeah, but I think he did a good job, and it represents, how the existing house overlays where the proposed house is going. And like I said, in reality, actually, the main structure of the house, the main body of the house is actually the main part of the house is actually less square footage than this area in blue. Really, the only addition is the two-car garage on the end. That's what bumps it over the 400 plus square feet.
that's only a two-car garage.
Yes, yep, it was a 3 bay, basically like a 2.5 bay almost. We got rid of a bay on the end and moved the house to get it, because I wanted to get a good 5 feet there out of the 50-foot buffer.
Yeah, I guess I'm still concerned about that area, sort of in the top of the bow that the auto court is in, and the driveway arcing into it.
This area up in here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, outside of the 100-foot buffer, it doesn't really matter.
Well, and I think I said to it before is like, I know my plan's a little busy here, but if we would take all this and shift it to the north and get everything outside the 100-foot buffer, well, now we're gonna take down a lot of trees over in this area here.
Yeah.
Up against, we're trying to protect. You can see where this dwelling and this garage is. It's feet it's 5 feet off of this property line. It's a pre-existing non-conforming condition. So, we're trying to keep separation between the adjoining houses and this ledge over here. So between ledge and additional tree removal, we're just trying to balance it out. And obviously also, we're trying to take advantage of, I know might not be a conservation thing, but we're trying to take advantage of the views of the harbor, and Minot Light, which you can see from the property up in this area here.
You've also got this is Sean Pappas, Sean Pappas Landscape Architecture, 222 North Street. One of the things you also have is, that driveway that exists today is more or less an asphalt lane that's it's a lot of asphalt coming through and across where what becomes part house and part auto court there. That exists today. So that is there, but that whole lane that comes down onto Lothrop Lane and in front of the old auxiliary building there to remain, all of that is a tremendous amount of asphalt that is the closest thing to this very narrow kind of brook intermittent stream. And to me, having reduced that or removed it by putting crushed stone in, I think is really, really, really valuable. And we had that last time too. But we edited a little bit here too. Again, shifting everything up and out of the 50. This seems like a huge improvement. And it works really well at the site. Doesn't crowd the wooded area to Brennan's point to the north there. So we feel like it's ideal. We reduced large area of that auto court. I'm getting rid of that other kind of shed garage bay was a huge deal. That was a pretty important piece. I was really happy that that was able to happen. And then move the building a few feet was even more help.
Would you go back to the last one quickly?
Would
This
someone
one?
be able to promote the property owner, Mike
Yeah,
Ryan?
okay. I just wanted to see how that driveway joins the auto court on the west side, and I thought there was a discrepancy there. There isn't.
Mr. Chair, sorry, I just added Mike Ryan, and I'm sorry. Ryan, are you the architect? I apologize. I promoted you and I thought you were the architect. I just want to make sure.
Sorry for the confusion. My first name is Ryan. The client's last name is
Yep.
Ryan. I work for Chris DeOrsay, the architect on this project, and he
Oh,
can.
okay. Do you want me to promote Chris as well?
He's not here tonight. He has a medical appointment, so I'm sitting in for him. Keeping
Oh,
him.
okay. I see him on the call, but maybe he's just listening in. So I'll promote him if he's available. And I'm sorry, we also do have Mike Ryan, the applicant, on the call as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't have anything more to say about it.
Thanks. Well, I do appreciate the effort to, move structure out of the 50, propose new building out of the 50 and replace the impervious existing driveway with pervious. I still find that this, new structure, adding all this new structure to the 100 is avoidable, and I don't know. I'm not really getting a real sense that this is avoiding, impacts or adverse effects or decreasing the buffer zone, functionality for that stream, personally. But regarding the pool, there's a question of that as well. So the location of that within the flood zone, is that, I mean, is there, what's the rationale for that? What's the reasoning for that? Is there options to avoid the retaining walls in the pool in that area, or is it just strictly aesthetic and preference?
I'll jump in real quick, just kind of going through my notes when we originally bought the property and met with Chris, the architect, and kind of tried to figure out how to do this. And it's obviously a special area in the town, and proximity to the water, meaning flooding. We wanted to make sure that we could keep the house in a safe spot for, my kids, kids, and in our family for a long time. And the idea of moving this house back felt like a very smart thing to do, to make sure that it, in the scenario where we do have water coming up and flooding over, hundreds of years or whatever it is, that we're in a, not in a spot where we go through the whole process and then the house doesn't last for as long as we like. And I think the intention was to move it back. And as I said last time when I was here, there wasn't, the stream on the side was not brought to our attention until, recently. But the intention of moving this back was to get it a little farther away, which protects the house from, increased water moving up over time. And the pool being where it is, I mean, we did look at other angles or ways to have it where it, if it went the other way, kind of going, I guess, perpendicular, I'd say, then we're kind of pushing out and getting closer to the ocean. And so, and I'm not super familiar with a lot of what everyone talks about here as far as like the wall, but if the question directly was, can that wall be pushed a little more forward, is that the concern, or is it more where the house is, which you were talking about last time, and the pool being next to the house?
Well, there's two there's the flood zone, which is one resource, and then there's the buffer zone to the intermittent stream, which is separate, but the same issue, I guess, overall is the with the property this size, that it seems like there's more than adequate space to locate that, understanding that there's trees involved, but you use the same footprint of the existing house. I can't imagine you'd be removing that many more trees. I don't know about where you could place the pool. I'm not an architect or an engineer, but that's what I guess I'm looking for, some sort of persuasive reasoning for why it has to be there, and also good demonstration on behalf of the flood zone that that added structure and the pool retaining wall is not going to adversely affect the flood storage capacity of that area, and the neighbors are clearly concerned about that. And alternatively on the buffer zone, that all this new structure, while there is removal of impervious, you're still that's, I don't see the limit of work, by the way. I don't know if that was shown on any of these, Brendan, but
Yep, the limit of work
yeah.
is shown in red here is the silt
Okay,
fence.
is that what the red has got? All
Yeah.
right, so I mean, there's I don't see removal of impervious as equal to no adverse impact. So that's my opinion as one commissioner, but
So you want the whole house moved out of the 100-foot buffer and then just restore the pavement and everything back to its natural state as it was 250 years ago when they built the house?
I'm not saying that, Brendan.
Sounds like it. Sounds like
Yeah,
it.
you're hearing what
Brendan
you
and
mean.
Mike,
That's
it's
why
Adam
we're here.
Brodsky.
That's why we're here, for work in the 100-foot buffer. That's why we're asking for this. That's why we come in front of the commission for with these projects. I explained already, I believe, and Sean did as well, that the position of the house, if we move it to the north, we're gonna be taking down more trees. We're into ledge. If we go into, you want to go into what, so here's the existing house right here, right? Here's the existing house. If we want to put a pool in the backyard, all this is all ledge. You want to put a pool in the front yard. We don't want to put it over here in the 100-foot buffer. This is all ledge. This is ledge and trees. So even if we were to keep the existing house, the pool would still probably be down in this area here, which is actually where it is now. When we pulled the house back, we actually have half of the pool and the patio outside of the floodplain. I mean, the floodplain was brought up before. It's land subject to coastal storm flowage. We don't need compensatory storage. Not that you say we could, we're not affecting the abutting properties. Where we have the fill, we don't have, like 2 or 3 feet to the property line. We're going to be flooding out, Lothrop Lane. The floodwaters are going to come in and they're going to recede just as they do today.
Brendan, it's Adam Brodsky. Would it be helpful if I just briefly addressed floodplain? I think you've touched upon it, the key points. But it is land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's not an inland floodplain, where, as you mentioned, bordering land subject to flooding or isolated land subject to flooding, where you would need compensatory flood storage. In a 100-year coastal event, the entire floodplain is going to slowly fill with water. This is an A zone, and we're outside of the limb wall. So there's no wave action. It's not like you have fast moving water. It will slowly fill and slowly recede. Nothing we're going to do is going to affect the ability of that floodplain to accept all of this water from the ocean. And I think Mr. Bell made this point fairly clear at the last hearing, which is why you're allowed to put pools in a flood zone, particularly in an A zone, and you're also allowed to fill within a coastal A zone. Again, if we were dealing with an inland flood zone, we'd be having an entirely different conversation. But because of the size of the flood zone, the fact that it's coastal, nothing we're going to do on this project is going to impair the ability of that floodplain to function. And in fact, having fill there protects the house which is actually one of the reasons why you're sort of concerned with floodplain, storm damage prevention and flood control. And the building codes are designed to protect buildings. And so this is actually protective of this house and will not have an adverse effect on any of the adjacent properties. And the only other point I'd like to make, I think we're losing sight of, is that I mean we have this intermittent stream sitting in a developed area presently, and we're proposing to improve conditions, and which is what we're supposed to do. And I don't think there's any suggestion that any of the proposed alterations within the 50 and the 100 are going to somehow affect or adversely impact the inland bank or result in any impact to the stream, which apparently receives waters from offsite areas. Nothing that's on this side is really contributing. So coupled with the fact that we're providing improvements, it's perfectly reasonable to ask for work within the 50 to the 100, given how, again, when the resource areas get value, this small stretch of intermittent stream, I'm going to suggest, has less wetland value than, for example, any bordering vegetated wetland or pond in the area. So anyway, I just felt compelled to speak a little bit about floodplain. This commission has allowed filling in floodplain, and there's nothing different with this project than any of the others that it's approved. Thank you.
Thank you. So you're making the statement that the intermittent stream's not going to receive waters from this site? Is that what you said?
No, sir. My point is that there's no evidence that we're going to adversely impact either the inland bank or the intermittent stream. There's presently, I believe, existing asphalt. I have no idea where water goes, but I'm guessing since the source of the water in that streams appears to be off-site, that the source of that water is elsewhere, for which we have no control.
Well, certainly as a buffer zone, you'd be contributing to the waters that go downstream. That's what the buffer zone. That's why there are buffer zones.
The buffer zone is presently asphalt, unless I'm mistaken. And we're proposing to remove the asphalt and put in gravel, which will actually improve water quality, if that's your concern.
Oh, I understand there's asphalt there now.
I think the buffer zone is improved. Brendan could perhaps speak to that, and Adam also, as he's doing, but I believe the buffer zone is improved when it comes to any water that's flowing. We're going to a permeable crushed stone drive that is reduced. Much of the asphalt, any of that other asphalt, of course, again, is removed. The water that falls on anything that is from the garage and the auto court is managed at this point. Currently, it is not managed. So there's nothing managing that water that hits and flows. So I think there's not even a question of it. I don't even think it's a question. I don't think it's even a possibility that it could be worse. I just don't understand how that's not understandable.
Yeah, so the 50-foot buffer, not to say that the entire 50-foot buffer drains to the inland bank, but we're reducing that impervious area in the 50-foot buffer by 1,600 square feet. The only thing really left is the existing garage and 44 square feet of concrete apron in front of the garage. That's the only thing, that's the only impervious that's staying in the 50-foot buffer. And this actually, the runoff from this actually doesn't even go to the bank. You can see it runs to the back of the garage and to the east of the garage down onto the remaining portion of the property.
All right. Well, I'm only one commissioner, but I completely understand that there's impervious being removed, but the way that I see this site, and there's options to locate all this structure outside of the 100, in my opinion. But as I say, I'm one commissioner. But it sounds like at the very least we do want to see an updated wetlands delineation. with the currently listed as isolated.
So this order of conditions, which I don't even know if it's, I don't even, is that what you're talking about, the isolated wetland across the street?
That's the one.
I mean, it's technically still an open order of conditions, right? If it was issued in 2022. 3 years for an order of conditions and the 1 year extension is probably still active under this year.
I can check, Brendan. Give me 1 second.
What I'm getting at is that you're changing a decision that was rendered from this board. Just, it's not like it was 10 years ago, it was 3 years ago. And I don't know how that affects that project. When you have when you go from a 25-foot buffer to a now 100-foot buffer. Are you gonna tell them they can't do what they need, what they're proposing over there?
Mr.
just
Chair,
don't
do
see
we
how
want to
we-
ask town council?
Yeah, town council's on the line here.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. Someone repeat
So
that.
Alex, there was, for the wetland across the street, there were 2 notices of intent that were submitted back to back in 2022 and 2023. At the time that those were issued, and the wetland delineation at the time was, 3 years, but as we know, there's some state extensions. So the order of conditions from 2023, I'll just give you the most current one. It was issued in, sorry, 1 second, like spring of 2023. So that would give it a spring 2026 expiration date. And I understand there are some economic development bill extensions to that. So with that being said, at the time, it was unknown whether this isolated vegetated wetland was connected. And it seems like that this wetland could be connected. So I guess what would be if we were to assume a bordering vegetated wetland for this project, does that have any adverse implications for the permits that were already issued when the wetland was identified as an isolated one?
No, I think the delineation is still binding at this point. to the
It's still
extent-
binding.
Yes.
Okay.
Unless there's, unless there's really concrete evidence that it's not accurate, it's still binding, legally speaking.
Yeah, there is the outlet pipe that's even shown on the plans. The only problem is it's not 100% clear. It appears to be connected to the stream, but I could not find along that opposite property boundary. I could not find where the pipe came out, and the only evidence where the pipe could come out could be the bank in the stream, because there's no pipe like sticking out on the other side of Atlantic Ave, unless somebody wants to correct me, because I didn't see it. And John Zimmer did not see it.
Ms. Bechtel, can I ask Brendan? I believe that issue was evaluated at the time those orders were issued, and a determination made that that pipe was not connected. So while the commission may have a suspicion, unless I'm corrected, this issue was discussed and an order issued determining that that's IBW. It's unusual to go back and delineate wetland, particularly as town councils indicated, without concrete new evidence to contradict that. If it was discussed in 2023 and determined to be IBW, I haven't heard anything that suggests.
I can't confirm or deny that, Mr. Brodsky, but in 2022 was the plan that Merrill had submitted. 2023 was an additional NOI submitted by the applicant. So if there were or were not any discussions about that, it would have been in 2022 when we were looking at the wetland delineations for the first time. So I would need to confirm that information. But I guess as Alex, even if it is, let's just say it wasn't discussed and it wasn't known, the delineation you're saying from 2022 and 2023 in the orders of conditions is still legally binding?
Yes. Again, unless there's some concrete evidence to suggest otherwise.
Like if it were the case that maybe if this pipe wasn't shown on the 2022 plan, but it was, so.
Yeah, I couldn't pull that up.
Right, so that's, and like I said before, I believe it was that this area is lower than the pipe. That's why it was deemed to be isolated, not connected. Because
Mhm.
obviously, if you see an isolated wetland with an outlet to it, that's no longer isolated, but this one did. So, um, I
Yeah, I'm looking at the 2022 plan. You do note that outlet invert 14 point plus or minus. But again, we don't see where that's going. We don't see that on this plan. We just see it on the site. And like I said, the only other connection point that I can see visible from the opposite side of the street is the bank. But again, we don't know if the pipe's going under the ground. We don't know if, I can't 100% confirm that, but it seems to be that they could be connected. As I guess I'm just
Yeah.
trying to note that. But I understand if the order is legally binding and the previous delineations are legally binding, that's fine. But I do want to note that that does appear to be an observation on site.
All right. Thank you. Commissioners, any further questions or comments? No. Charlotte, do you care to address or can you just read the Q&A? Do you have any questions before we get to that or comments?
Well, yeah, I guess we can maybe circle back at the end, but I do want to check in with the commission on where we stand in terms of any additional information or site plan changes or anything like that. But I guess we can go through comments first and circle back to that just to make sure the commission either has or doesn't have everything that they need.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to group the first two questions. Mr. Chair, is that okay? And then you can direct them to whoever needs to answer.
Seems like they're all from the same person.
Yes.
So we
Yeah, the
just-
first two questions are kind of related, and I think the other questions are separate questions about the project. So I'm going to try to read through this quickly. My name is Tony Catlin. I'm representing the family members who own 7 and 17 Lothrop as abutters to 159 Atlantic Ave. I've also been asked to speak for 11 Lothrop Lane. We have a number of questions and concerns regarding the proposed project at 159 Atlantic Ave. While we want to be neighborly, we want to look at out for our properties and how they could be adversely affected by 159's proposed project. Our 3 properties are in effect downhill of 159. Given the size of the house, change of grading, the amount of proposed pervious area that would become impervious, we are concerned about runoff, flooding, and damage to wetlands. We'd like to respectfully propose some things to the commission, to conservation and the Ryan family that would maintain more pervious land and ease our concerns about water runoff and flooding. Looks like I have to add them a few at a time. And sorry, he's saying bear with me here. So the first two questions or comments: instead of installing a gravel driveway at the top of Lothrop Lane to that old dilapidated shed, can current asphalt driveway be removed and then loam and seed that whole area to create lawn in a more pervious area? Second question related to that is, can a grouping of trees then be planted at the Lothrop Lane entrance to create quote unquote woods that would create a natural buffer between the proposed new house and Lothrop Lane? Would also further help in water. They would also help in further water absorption in tandem with the lawn area. I suspect that could also satisfy conservation, given the number of trees that were cut down within the buffer zone without conservation's permission.
Thank you. So
Oops.
question being, for the applicant, what is the appetite for removing the driveway and altogether that is on the auxiliary building or attaches to that?
Just so I clarify that the request to plant some trees, and was that implying that then there's trees, so there's no way to enter near that
I think
driveway?
so. Yeah, yeah, that's and if we're looking at, in my view as well, if we're looking at improving that in that area, that's markedly better than just removing asphalt and putting in keeping a driveway, but whether it be pervious or not.
I mean, and I think I just want to make the point too that we spoke to a lot of the neighbors, and I think the folks that were there last time and the folks that tonight, I've never met. So I just want to make the point that I know there was concern over the water, and like there's a lot of neighbors who are very comfortable with what we've proposed, and we've spoke with them, and I think unfortunately we didn't get to speak with these people. So I just want to make the point that like we've made an effort to speak with people and address concerns and talk to them. And I think Brendan said last time that he said no, there would not be additional water that would be running off down based on how he's designing this. I felt good about his answer. I think having access in there, the gravel putting rocks or gravel is or just having, grass there, being able to drive down to put an Opti in there at the end of the season and then put it out is important. I don't need it to be gravel. Like I said last time, we're not going to be using it. So planting trees there, to me, that is more of an issue being able to drive a car on grass a couple times a year, it wouldn't be an issue to me versus I don't need a gravel driveway or anything like that.
Thank you. Charlotte, thank you, Mr. Ryan. The next question is regarding the pool, Charlotte.
Yep. I'm sorry. The next question looks like it's about the new asphalt driveway guest parking, and I can go through those.
Sorry.
That's okay. I'll go through the next two, just do it in chunks. So instead of installing a new asphalt driveway and guest parking area off of 159 Atlantic Ave, could a nice gravel driveway be installed? By doing that, you would add more pervious area, and we wouldn't have the environmental concern of new asphalt and all the toxic chemicals that are in the asphalt that could leach into the property and groundwater. And I just grouped this question, even though it's not related, but do the Ryans plan on removing ledge in the front, sides, and back of the house where the proposed deck and pool will be? If so, isn't a special permit needed for that?
I thought I just wanted to be clear there. Like if the question is can we have not put gravel down and just have grass be there, that's fine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right. Mike, I'm sorry. I think the third question about installing a new asphalt driveway and guest parking area off of the 159 Atlantic Ave entrance. So just a different area. So where you're proposing the impervious auto court and the repavement of the existing asphalt driveway. He said, could a nice gravel driveway be installed? And then by doing that, you add more pervious, wouldn't have the environmental concern of the chemicals and the asphalt that could leach into the property and groundwater.
And I think that is a question for Mike. Ultimately, obviously, they would want the driveway to be very functional. I actually think the auto court area, it's still pretty nice to have a hard surface out in front of that your main garage area is helpful. There may be some possibility of going to crushed stone for the approach from the street, but we haven't talked to Mike and Aaron about that, so he'd have to weigh that option. We think that removing as much asphalt as we are removing is a pretty big jump in itself, but a lot of that is outside the jurisdiction of conservation, and you guys might say, hey, that's great, you guys, but we don't care. That's outside of our jurisdiction. We want in our 100-foot buffer. So move the house again, you might say, and say, we don't care how well you make the rest of the property, right? You may not care. You might say, well, I don't care if you guys do that much. I just want what I want. I want you guys to get everything out of the 100, right? Is that what I'm saying? Kieran, Chris?
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. And what I did say is that from my, looking at where the previous house footprint was, that moving it into the 100 for the purposes of the view, it isn't really, it doesn't, add up to me. And even though you're removing portions of asphalt, you're still adding driveway, carport, those don't aren't one-to-one. And removing just removing impervious does not equal no adverse impact. And so what I'm looking for is either demonstration that the new, structures, carport, garage will have no adverse impact. And, if that's an option to do impervious for the carport in the 100, then that's something that would, I would look favorably on.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, do you mean pervious?
Pervious, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And just to be clear, like it was the ability to move the house back, as I was saying earlier, was when we originally were there, was to be able to have a functional backyard and move the house back so that we can move farther away from the water and have an area, because it is a hill that goes down, and to avoid putting stuff down there. Like it wasn't, there was a lot of time and effort and money that went into designing this so that we could be in a position where this property can exist for a long period of time and not and be farther back than where it was now, and still respect the rules.
Okay.
It wasn't just
Understood.
about the aesthetics of the view, I think is one of the things we want to make sure we're driving home on the point. It was also about the functionality of the landscape and site planning, frankly. So it was about that also, primarily.
Okay.
It's almost like
I don't understand how we could say that a reduction in impervious is not an improvement in the buffer. That's what I don't understand what to tell them. If they're already reducing impervious, how that's not better already.
It could be better, but it's not. I'm not saying it's not. It's not just one to one. Like replacing impervious with pervious is automatically like restoring the.
It doesn't have to be restored though. It just has to have no adverse impact.
Right. So what I guess my question is, in the 100 as it is this trade-off actually decreasing adverse impact, or is this all this work and all this new structure in the 100 going to have ultimately an adverse impact? Yes, I see the number. Thank you for zooming in. It's very thoughtful.
That's what I mean. What quantitative or even qualitative thing can you say?
Oh, I don't know. Well, something like maybe like buffer zone functionality. I know there's things of that nature. They're still removing trees from the buffer zone, vegetation, that sort of thing. So
we are adding a great deal of vegetation into the
all right. So I guess the answer is no to that question. They're not willing to put impervious for the carport. So next question is:
are you saying pervious? You're saying permeable, right?
Yeah, so the quick answer, sorry, is the applicant open to considering and looking or installing pervious surface options either in the parking area and or proposed driveway outside the 100-foot buffer? I think that's what the question is asking.
And I think it comes down to how Mike and Aaron feel about it, I think. And
agreed. Just want to summarize.
Haven't had a chance to talk with him about, obviously he's in the middle of a hearing like this.
Okay. Yeah, so the next question quickly on, do the Ryans plan on removing the ledge in the front sides back of the house where the proposed deck and pool will be? If so, isn't a special permit needed for that, Mr. Chair? I don't know who you want to answer that.
I could take a stab at that if you want.
Yeah, please.
So the pool and the terrace in the back, obviously you can see that most of that is over the existing structure. The pool is over the portion of the house, and there's no ledge in this area. There is a small piece of ledge maybe in the front here, but utilities are exempt from the removal, the bylaw for the ledge removal. So really the only area over the ledge is the exposed ledge is in the front yard area where the utilities are going in.
Got it. Thank you. And last, what question are we on now? 7? Size-
5. Sorry, I'll read them in the double. So what is the depth of the proposed pool? Does that depth interfere and impede with the natural water table and floodplain? Are there rules for this? So that's about the pool, the depth, and the natural water table. The second question in this group was the low-lying area of the yard that contains the tennis court and surrounding area often floods depending on the weather, creating a large pond of stagnant water. How will the proposed construction affect this? What are suggestions above help from 1 through 4? As this as well will curb runoff on and down to Lothrop Lane, as well as 7-Eleven and 17 yards. Sorry, yards as in properties, I assume. Mr. Chair, who do you want to answer those 2 questions?
Yeah, Brendan, if you can speak to that.
Yeah,
think that was
I'll leave
addressed.
Sean for the pool area, but as far as the runoff, as I said before, the tennis court is lower than most of, if not all of Lothrop Lane. All this pools in here, and goes into the intermittent stream, as I've stated before. Number of times, that's why we have an infiltration system to infiltrate and attenuate the runoff. So our calculations show that there's less runoff heading to the stream than post-construction than there is today. So there'll be no adverse runoff into Lothrop Lane or into the intermittent stream below. As far as the depth of the pool and stuff, I think Sean might have an answer for that.
Yeah, that would be a typical pool depth. It's 3.5 feet in the shallow end to 8 feet deep in the deep end.
Got it. Thank you. And last 2 questions there, Charlotte.
So what is the size of the proposed house? Will it be subject to a large house review? And then last question, is there any further tree work plan for the areas that run along Lothrop Lane? If so, what and would conservation have jurisdiction? With appreciation, thanks, Tony Catlin on behalf of 7-Eleven, 17 Lothrop Lane. And then just an additional comment that the Ryans have not spoken to anyone at 7-Eleven and 17 Lothrop. Mr. Chair, last 2 questions.
Yeah, I think that was addressed. What was the increased size of the house by basically the garage, which is an extra, what was it, 400 feet or something?
I think they're asking for the total size of the new proposed house, and is it subject to large home review?
Brendan,
I believe we're under the large home review threshold, especially with the reduction of the extra garage bay. I believe we're under the threshold for large home review.
it's not our purview anyway, so all
I
right.
just want to
Well,
add too that we intentionally built a house that was very similar in size to the existing house to respect the area and to, pay homage to the house that's there. And then again, as I said earlier, move it back a little bit to be a little farther away from the water, remove half of the driveway to have more grass and trees there. And then we more recently, removed a third bay of the garage. So we're, trying to do everything we can to build a house that works, that allows us to have a backyard that will last for a long time and be a little farther away and protected from the water rising over time and the environment there. Trying to do everything we can to keep every party happy. We've had neighbors in Lothrop come over. We went to the Lothrop Beach Association meeting. We've made a lot of effort to make sure we were able to move into this area and keep relationships and not bother people, and we're doing the best we can.
okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, but the last question was about the tree work. Any future tree work plan for the areas that run along Lothrop Lane? If so, what and would conservation have jurisdiction?
So the landscape plan was shown. Can refer to that. There's
no intention of doing any additional tree work right along Lothrop Lane. If that was is that the question?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think there's any intention of doing any additional tree work around along Lothrop Lane at this point.
Yeah, this is all staying.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So sounds like the applicant's willing to put grass in on that what would be pervious driveway to that small outbuilding. And I guess it's up to you if you're Mr. Ryan, if you'd be willing to consider putting in pervious around for your auto court. If you don't have to answer that now, but for me anyways, that would be an improvement in terms of wetlands as well. Other than that, Charlotte, did you have anything else to add at this time?
Mostly deferring to the commission on the landscaping plan. So I don't know if the commission had any comments for that. They are proposing to remove some trees. A good portion of them are outside the buffer zone, but a couple were removed initially. And they showed, per our request, they showed those trees for the auto court that are going to be removed in the 100. And then the planting plan, I believe, Sean, you have 8 trees going in the 100, well, the entire buffer zone. I can't see which ones are in the 50 versus the 100, but I think you have 8 total, correct? Along with a handful of, shrubs, perennials, et cetera. But you're only specifying the plantings species-wise in the 100-foot buffer, and then obviously you're showing everything else outside the buffer, just more on a general perspective, right? Oh, sorry, Sean, you're muted.
Thank you. I got a barking dog, so I apologize. I was trying to get
No worries.
So, yeah, exactly right. 8 trees in the 100 is what we're illustrating at this point. Native trees in the 100. Probably 30 shrubs in that area. Some seed mix that we're going to kind of fill that lower area with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
sorry, where's the seed mix going?
That is to the right of the existing outbuilding down there.
Okay. All right,
Essentially,
great.
Yeah, making that area.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always love lawn, frankly, and we didn't think anybody in your jurisdiction working in your arena loves lawn. So we almost think crushed stone is preferable to lawn in a lot of ways. But we also like the seed mix. There's the native New England Conservation Wildlife mix that we're using there. So that's essentially that whole edge gets planted up in a way that's not planted now. It's essentially a mix of some plant material, but it's a lot of lawn air and asphalt, of course.
Yeah, no, and based on the discussions today, I guess my only question to the commission and the applicant would be given the considerations that might be looked at, maybe instead of lawn, do you want to put the seed mix area in lieu of the gravel driveway as long as you can still mow it and access the existing garage?
I think that gravel is better for stormwater than lawn, and I think the bigger concern in this area is the stormwater than anything else. So I think it is a negative to put grass there of any kind. Putting native seed mix.
Where is this coming from? Where are you getting that? Where is that? Is that just your opinion, or is this? We're talking about buffer zone here too.
It is, but there's also a stormwater permit.
Right. So in this case, it's the 50-foot buffer zone to a wetland, which the functionality of which is one of the things is the ability of vegetation to uptake, water. So
yeah, and gravel lets
Sean,
water.
Can you comment on the curve number? Lawn versus gravel. Can you comment on the curve number for gravel versus grass?
That'd probably be that would be a Brendan Sullivan question if it's
okay. Brendan,
runoff coefficients. If we're gonna start getting into runoff coefficients and et cetera, I might push that to Brendan. But what you have found is if somebody's got grass, at some point, or chemicals going on at you're not supposed to. We all know that, but you never know what can happen. And so that's where grass that is maintained every week and mown every week tends to be something we think of as high maintenance, right? And something that's sometimes I feel like the crushed stone is almost acting like a drainage swale in its own way, to Will's point. So that might be, coming from several different sources. How do we all, what is our opinion on it? So Brendan, I don't know if you have thoughts about that, lawn versus
Yeah,
crushed
so
stone.
the current numbers, they can vary significantly, especially with the gravel driveway. If
Yeah.
you think of your typical gravel driveway, which is just not crushed stone, but just a gravel driveway, which is dirt and some stone mixed in. Over time, that's going to get hard pack, and yeah, that curb number could be close to pavement. I'm doing a job in Norwell where the review engineer wants me to use a curb number of 98 for asphalt and 96 for gravel. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's a little bit ridiculous, but in a
So the
situation like this,
lawn would be far less, right? Not
yes,
necessarily
yes,
far less, but yeah.
but in a situation like this, where the gravel drive, the crushed stone driveway or the Riverstone driveway, to Will's point, is going to act as a reservoir for the runoff. And it's not going to get hard packed. It's going to stay, as long as it's maintained and doesn't get overgrown with weeds or anything, or is not compacted by heavy truck traffic or anything. It's going to stay, just as that as crushed stones. So the runoff is going to run into it, run through it, and then eventually get to the grass if it doesn't go through the Riverstone itself. So there's a big difference between a crushed stone maintained driveway and a gravel driveway, which can over time become almost as compact as pavement.
Yeah.
So
This isn't a driveway. How was it referred to, Mr. Ryan? It's
really just
intention. It's
access to the
intention,
garage.
which was
Exactly right. It's a storage of Optis, which would be driven on twice a year. It's like taking them out, bringing them to the water, and putting them back in. And the whole, again, it was we moved the house back to have a garage attached to it and have one entrance, and then leave the existing garage, the existing one that's just sitting there, and store some Optis there.
so it's not likely to be a high traffic area where it would be subject to compaction and turning into something. It would remain lawn basically with the amount of use that you would use. But
And it sounds like
You're
Mr. Ryan's okay with either surface. I want to make sure I'm not putting words in your mouth, Mike, but it sounds like you're okay with either surface because of the fact that you would use it so rarely.
It's just exactly just to get just one access to it, to be able to put those in there.
Yeah.
Back to the trees. So I see the landscape plans pulled up, but do we have the table with like the
Yeah,
tree count?
yeah, and you could even go to there's another landscape plan that's black and white. It's not as pretty to look at, but I apologize, but it's illustrates trees that you see in the 50. You'll see the more mechanical looking circles there. What we have is some red oaks, a red oak, black gum, what else do we have there? We have some cedars also in this area. We have American holly also in the area. We've got several cedars to the right between the 50 and the 100, to the right of the existing structure down there. Yeah, thank you. Large, and that's in and among the area that would be the conservation seed mix. We also,
So what's the net increase in the 100 of trees? Do you have that on there?
I think we have 8 new trees going in.
And how many were removed already or proposed to be removed for the carport?
I think we'll probably be right around in total when you include the couple that were removed now. I know there was a question about some that were in that little island. I know one of those was a Norway maple and one was like a ornamental dogwood. I'm not sure how much you count those. They were smaller. In total, there's probably going to be about the same amount in total, about 8. There's some other junipers that are coming out. 7 to 8 is what I would say.
Yeah, I think we had the red X's here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah,
7 in the 100.
yeah.
Mm.
And that includes the 45 incher that was taken down previously.
Mm.
Just to stress, we would not have taken it down if we knew about the water over there before talking to you guys.
Yeah, right.
We did not know about this at all, you know.
Didn't know about that stream, right? That's correct.
All right. Charlotte or commissioners, anything else?
Yeah, I'll defer to commissioners. That my only comment was, it sounds like they have some potential considerations to the site plan. So if there's any modifications that the commission or information the commission would like to see for the landscape plan as well, just now would be the time to say it.
I think they've demonstrated that they're replacing 1-to-1, so I don't have any questions on that regard. I think, yeah, a decision on what they want to do with the driveway. If they're open to grass, that would be great, but it's their decision. No other commissioners?
Just to
No other
clarify,
comments?
if us having grass versus gravel on as the entrance to the existing garage is, again, always trying to do things that you guys would like us to do, and because it improves, and if that is something that you would like us to do, and that solves a problem that solves some of this, then we're happy to do it. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd have the 3-car garage and we'd have it be gravel. But again, as I've said, we're doing everything we can to try to make this house, move it back, have a backyard, have one entrance so that have more land and, trees area there, but still just keep a little bit of access to this existing thing to store some opties in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an improvement in my opinion as one commissioner. I think but that's just me. So it sounds like the others don't have any other comments.
Chair
What's
McIntyre,
the-
it's Adam Brodsky. If the board was inclined to close the hearing and vote to approve, you certainly could have a special condition that require that gravel area be grass, and we could provide an updated site plan as a condition of any approval.
Right. Thank you. Well, if there's no other questions from the audience, or the commission, does anyone care to make a motion? Yes, anyone?
Yeah, I move to issue an order of conditions.
Okay, sorry. Do you guys want conditions or do you just want those 2 conditions?
Well, yeah, you probably ought to read your conditions, Charlotte.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't think that was happening until right now. All right, give me one moment. So it sounds like we're looking for a potential condition on the replacement of gravel with lawn, or are we lawn
I think
near a brook?
Yeah, I mean, I think native seed mix, if that's something that'd be mown to be treated like lawn, if
Okay.
it's already part of the landscaping plan, if
Mhm.
Mr. Ryan, if it makes no difference to you, it could still be mown, but it's less, it's more hardy and less likely to require any herbicides, which are prohibited in the 50-foot buffer zone anyways. But if that's acceptable to you, that would be the preference for a 50 in the 50.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, if in a perfect world, it would be other things, but like I said, I'm happy to make changes to and do that. I guess certain grass seed you mentioned, if that's that's what you
Okay.
guys would like, I'm happy to do that, you know.
Okay. And okay, so just type that out and then so I'm sorry, are we looking at pervious for the auto court or are we keeping it as impervious?
And
I think that they've reduced the impervious quite a bit. The auto court's basically on top of what was once a driveway, and so I'm can't say I'm really pleased with it, but I think it's adequate.
Okay. Not hearing any other comments, so I'm going to take over screen share. All right, I'll be quick. I know we've been talking for over an hour. This order permit shall be contingent upon the applicant obtaining all their permits, all the required state local permits from other boards and permitting authorities. No site work, including the land clearing work, shall occur until all other applicable permits and approvals have been obtained, such as not limited to zoning, board of appeals, planning, sewer, and building permit. All changes to the site plans from any other required state and local board reviews and permitting authorities shall be submitted to the Conservation Commission in writing. No revised site work or changes are allowed to begin until the Conservation Commission reviews the subsequent changes to the plans. So prior to site work, following shall be completed. The contractor and applicant shall initially walk the site with the agent to inspect the following, which shall be adjusted in the field as necessary to protect existing conditions and vegetation as much as possible. Staked limit of work. All trees within the limit of work proposed to remain shall be marked with green ribbon as necessary tree protection barriers. All trees proposed to be removed within limit of work shall be marked accordingly. Erosion controls may be installed after initial inspection of limit of work. After all marked trees are removed within the limit of work and erosion barriers are installed, the contractor shall contact the agent for an additional inspection prior to construction. Actually, you know what? That's kind of repetitive, but if anyone wants me to take it out, I will. Applicant shall work with the agent engineer and landscape architect to revise the site and landscape plans to replace the proposed gravel access path within the 50-foot buffer to a native seed mix approved by the agent. And then this was related to the retaining wall, since the proposed retaining wall in the rear is over 5 feet, so structural plans will most likely be needed for the building permit. I'll defer to the commission if you want this the condition in here. The applicant shall submit structural plans as designed by a structural engineer to the proposed retaining walls to the agent and building department as part of the building permit application. The commission reserves the right to retain a peer review engineer at the expense of the applicant to review these designs from stormwater management perspective, should there be any stormwater concerns from the agent or the commission. And then as part of the stormwater permit, the proposed landscape plan shall be followed. All native plantings shall be installed within the areas as shown. Actually, I'm going to take that out. Sorry, because Sean, I get why you did what you did. All plantings on the site shall be planted randomly as much as possible to mimic natural conditions. No mulch or fill is allowed within the proposed planting areas in the buffer zones and resource areas except as necessary to install any larger plantings. The area shown on the plans to be installed to naturally vegetated conditions. The second sentence not appropriate, but I just want to emphasize not putting in a bunch of mulch in the buffer zone. And fill. And then following site inspections are required at pre-construction, pre-stormwater installation, pre-paving, pavement removal, driveway inspections, pre-landscaping and mitigation, and final. Does anyone have questions about the blue language? Take it out, leave it, revise it, and then after that, anyone want to make a motion?
Ms. Peckel, it's Adam Brodsky. Would it be appropriate with respect to the condition where we're now proposing native seed mix to put something in there that the area can be mowed? I just don't want the homeowner to get in trouble doing work within the 50. I thought it was you could put it at the end of your condition where we make the project change, where we're going from gravel.
The pre-construction, if we want to see that change, prior to construction to get those plans. Sorry, I'll play with spacing later. So this was the subsection for the prior to any site work. So like if you want like a maintenance condition about allowing mowing for periodic access, I can put that as a separate condition, not related to pre-construction.
Thank you. That was the idea. I just would hate.
Okay.
I would hate the property owner to run afoul.
Unless I hear anything from the commission, I'm just going to keep typing for a second. Is that in a garage, existing garage?
Yes.
Does that make sense? We just don't want to see plants and stuff coming out. We just want to see mowing. So after installation of the native seed mix within the 50-foot buffer, periodic and non-frequent mowing may be allowed solely for the purposes of accessing the existing garage. No native planting surrounding the area.
Let's make that infrequent.
Infrequent? Oh yeah, is that the word? Sorry.
We don't want to make up new words.
My major was not English. Triple major, but it wasn't English. No native plantings are surrounding the native seed mix area within the buffer zone are allowed to be removed without prior approval from the commissioner agent as part of the periodic and infrequent mowing. Does that make sense? So yeah, you can mow periodically, infrequently, just don't take out any of the plantings.
Did it,
I'm
Charlie?
not hearing it. I'm not hearing anything, so I'm assuming that's fine.
Yeah, less. I was just
Yeah,
gonna say
good.
less
Keep going.
mowing the
Good.
less mowing the better. You know.
Yeah, it's less work for you.
Yeah, it's still. I mean,
Any other comments?
Doesn't seem so.
Nope. Okay. Tom, think you're
Yeah.
making a motion?
Right. I move to issue an order for conditions for NOI 2531, 159 Atlantic Avenue, with the conditions that have been outlined during the meeting and are part of the meeting record. So we really haven't talked very much about the stormwater permit. So I think, didn't we sort of arrive at a consensus that it was adequate, particularly since the infiltration chamber had been moved, reconfigured, and now is properly tested with 2 pits. So before I include that in the motion, this is sort of the last chance to.
Tom, I'd recommend just making a separate motion because it's 2 different laws, just to be
okay, sure.
thorough.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let's take care of the order conditions then. So to back up, the order is of conditions that have just been read out loud and are part of the meeting record.
For 159 for NOI,
NOI
2531.
2531, 159 Atlantic Avenue.
Kathy Berrigan, second.
Okay, with a motion and a second, then I'll take a roll call vote of commissioners. Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Will Ashton,
Aye.
and Chris McIntyre, nay. That vote passes 3-1-0. Tom, do you want to make a motion for the variance first?
It's not entirely clear to me that the commission is done with the stormwater permit. I am, but if anybody else isn't, now's the time.
Tom, there's 2 variances to vote on for the order. So one is the 50-foot buffer. The other one is for
Sure.
greater than
Okay.
1,000 square foot alteration of the floodplain.
Okay, we can stall on the stormwater permit for another minute or two. So I move to issue a variance for work within the 50-foot buffer
For 159 Atlantic
for
Ave.
159, Atlantic Avenue. What was the other variance?
We can do it separately. So this one is for the 50-foot buffer for 159.
Yeah.
Kathy Berrigan, second.
There we go.
Thank you. All right, with the motion and the second, then I'll take a roll call vote. Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Will Ashton,
Aye.
and Chris McIntyre, nay. That vote passes 3-1-0.
And the second variance is for the flood zone, right?
Yeah,
Charlie?
for greater than 1,000 square foot alteration of a resource area land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Yeah. So I move to issue a variance for the flood zone and disturbance of 1,000 square feet.
Kathy Berrigan, second.
Okay, take another roll call vote. For that, Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Will Ashton,
Aye.
and Chris McIntyre, aye. That vote passes 3-1-0.
So now the stormwater permit.
Yep.
Anybody have anything to say about it?
I don't have any issues with the stormwater. I don't have any questions myself.
With that, I move to issue a stormwater permit 2518 for 159 Atlantic Avenue with our normal conditions.
And the conditions shown.
And conditions shown. Yeah. Did you include those in that? You did.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Does he have a second? I have no issue with the stormwater conditions. I'll second that. With the motion and a second, I'll take a roll call vote. Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Will Ashton,
Aye.
Chris McIntyre, aye. That vote passes 4-0-0. Thank you. That hearing is for NOI 2531 and stormwater permit 2518 is now closed.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.
All right.
And
So-
thank you, Alex. I think he already jumped off.
That'll help. Next up, we got certificates of compliance for NOI 23-18, stormwater permit 23-13 for 31 and 35 Elm Street. Do you have anyone to promote for that one? Or do we have the Beechwood?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, 3135 Elm. And we have Jason Zatmary from, he's the applicant. Hey, Jason. I'm going to promote you. Hi, Jason. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Hello. So I think we had already previously voted on a partial COC for the NOI and a full COC for the stormwater. I need to get those to you. But I know we wanted to continue some discussions on the vegetation management plan that Brad Holmes had briefly presented at the last meeting, like 10:30 at night. So I guess the question to the commission, I don't know, Jason, if you want to add anything to this, but the question to the commission is, we obviously need to finish the mitigation planting. So it was 2,200 square feet. With that being said, during the time of construction, a large section of the area, which will soon take over the entire mitigation area, is now infested with Japanese knotweed. Brad's recommendation, and I can pull up the vegetation management plan. I'm not sure if you guys had more time to look through it. It is proposing to use herbicides. I don't have the details at the top of my head right now, but he does recommend taking out the knotweed before putting in any mitigation plantings. After visiting the site, Brad did not think that it was appropriate to plant anything native in terms of what was proposed on the plans until the knotweed can be dealt with, because it's just going to eventually take over the area. So with that being said, this is kind of, I briefly mentioned, this is kind of uncharted territory for our commission. We have not seen this come up, at least since I've been here. I don't know if you guys know anything before my time, but it would be the commission's discretion if you were to approve the vegetation management plan administratively to just continue the order of conditions to finish the required work, or if you want to see an amended permit perhaps to evaluate this. The variance that was granted, the order of conditions and the variance that was granted in the 50 was really only to plant by hand. So we would need to publicly discuss and vote on that if you were to approve it administratively. So just want to clarify that required process. But again, it's up to the commission. I don't know if anyone has questions on the management plan. I don't know if Brad is here tonight, but I guess that I'll turn it over to you guys unless Jason, if you had anything else to add.
No, I think that sort of sums it up. And I met with Brad, so if he's not here, I have nothing further to add than what he's articulated.
Yeah, I don't see him in the audience. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that, the knotweed was able to take hold. As Charlotte notes, it would be pretty unprecedented. I'm not even sure how to go about it, about approving such a change, which would include application of herbicides is it just it's in the it's in the resource, Charlotte, and the buffer. Right?
So the project is in Riverfront, partially, or actually mostly. Most of the properties in Riverfront. Here I'm going to pull up the as-built. So the restoration area, I'm sorry, I can get the approved plan, but the restoration area is in here within the inner riparian and the 50-foot buffer. I can pull up the plan in a second. So we're dealing with Riverfront, 50-foot buffer to the wetland, partial floodplain, but not directly in the BVW.
So it's in the 50 anyways in the riverfront, which is resource area. So, I mean, I don't know. I unfortunately, I think the cleanest and most consistent way to do this with how we've done things would be to look at this as a separate plan. I don't know how, and perhaps you can just use the existing site plan with the planting plan overlaid to make it easier and more streamlined. I don't know.
What we did in a similar situation was approved a smothering plan, basically covering how big is the area here? How many square feet?
2,200 square feet.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Um,
And the knotweed's kind of taken hold pretty much right here. So it hasn't encroached onto this side. I believe that.
Sorry, how much? What's the square? What's the area of the knotweed itself?
The area of the knotweed is probably about half the 2,200 square feet. I'm trying to draw an arrow right here, if you can see my mouse, but it's pretty much in this area entirely, and it hasn't moved over to this side yet.
So what we did before, which is probably about that same area, was require that the applicant use a impervious tarp to block sunlight for, how long has it been? 3 years, Charlotte? Something like that.
I don't think so, Jason. You started, or your contractor started work, I think.
No, I'm talking about the example of the one that we did approve.
That's been about maybe 2 years. I have to check.
Yeah, 2 years.
But we don't know what happens when you take that tarp out.
No, we don't. But there's no pesticides, herbicides used in that situation. It's unfortunate to have
correct
that we have to go to these lengths to do it, but I mean, it is in Riverfront and it is in the buffer zone, and to have any hope here of fixing this. And then we have our other experiment going. I don't know, these are popping up, and it's hard.
Yeah, we don't have any solid data right now.
We really don't. I mean, we've got 2 experiments going,
and
we don't have results.
And talking with Brad, just would the tarping be to kill that area, quickly plant while the knotweed grows outside of it?
No, I think it would be to kill the knotweed so that you could then plant where the knotweed is currently established. So the tarp goes over the section of the restoration area that has established knotweed.
So it's okay that the knotweed is outside of that, but for a short period of time, the knotweed's dead there. Because because
it propagates by rhizomes. The problem is by basically roots snaking radially away from the plants, and it doesn't really propagate by seed, I don't think, and so it's really hard to get rid of.
Yeah, that's why he was saying
it could be under a tarp for a couple of years, and for that matter, I think you might find that you would have to apply pesticides every season for a few years too. So there is no good option here. The tarping is is maybe better. We don't know yet. But when the good thing about it is you're not using any herbicides in a resource. I believe what we did at this place that was tarp, that was in a buffer zone. It wasn't in the resource, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I can't recall if it was in floodplain, but it definitely was not riverfront. It was within the 50-foot buffer to the coastal beaches
Coastal bank.
and the coastal
That's right.
bank. Yeah.
that's right.
This is kind of hard to see, but like pretty much the knotweed is like right in here. And that's again pretty much half of the mitigation area. So
And that was the area that was also untouched. You know, that's
Right.
below that massive
Yep.
parking pad that was there. And just seeing it on my neighbors, you know, I don't think there's anything new that drove it to grow, except just the season we were there. Like I'm looking at it now and it looks pretty empty, right? So it's been there for years. It's not like we took out that big parking pad and all of a sudden it took off. So you know, for what it's worth, you know, for me and the other pilot, just all the reading I've been doing and talking with Brad is the tarping is probably not going to, you know, sort of be the solve. But I'm open to other ideas if there's to steward the you know, the mitigations, if there's other areas to, you know, plant those, whether it's on the side of the property or what. I'm open to other.
In Brad's plan, does he talk about multi-year treatment, or is this a one and done thing?
Multi-year treatment during the growing season.
Yeah.
What is I mean,
Year 1,
this
2,
is
3.
somewhat uncharted territory, at least for us to would be the approval of in an administrative way use of herbicide. So it's kind of the hang up for me anyways. I'm curious what mowing and planting. I don't know what the original planting plan was, if it was all smaller plants, but if you were to mow it down and plant
It was
trees.
Sorry, Chris, it was some trees. So it was 2
25.
trees and then 25 shrubs.
Those are planted.
Yep. Oh, you did plant all
Yep.
those. Okay.
And
then the native, yeah,
so
and then there was
I
a
planted
native.
the 2.
Yep. The 2 trees.
There you go. So
Yeah, but you put them over
I haven't
like
done
here
the
because that was our
25
initial
shrubs.
discussion. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So you need to plant this is the as-built. So you planted 2 American elms here, not in the knotweed. And then we were holding off on the rest of the plantings, right? Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
So the
To
knotweed's like
just get this
knotweed's pretty much right
because
here.
it's also like remember Charlotte, when Brad and you walked it, like the vegetation's pretty stable. Obviously the knotweed's there, but there is a lot of covering, so he didn't want to disturb that.
Right.
But yeah, those are the 25 small shrubs and then the hand thrown 30 pounds of natural seed.
Yeah, there was a native seed mix and then the 25 shrubs in that 2,200 square foot area. So you spaced everything out in that area and then let it grow in.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where the seed mix is, but it's somewhere on this plan.
Yeah. I just remember 30 pounds of.
Yeah. Yep, there we go. The New England showy flower seed mix within that entire hatched area in between all the shrubs and the trees.
Yep.
I wonder
so we don't want to disturb. Sorry.
I said, I mean, I'm just speculating. I'm not a specialist, but I wondered if you could mow and plant the trees and then tarp around it where the knotweed is, to keep the knotweed at bay and let the trees grow for a while, and then thereby creating a kind of a canopy to prevent them from, you know, more naturally from flourishing. I don't know enough about knotweed, and I know it's invasive.
It's gnarly.
Yeah, I know it looks like it can identify it, and I know it's hard to get rid of, and the rhizomes go very deep, and that
So for what it's worth, I think the neighbors have been light-handed in trying to keep it at bay. And I think they say every couple of years, like they'll see a root or something. Um, but very little effort on their part now. Obviously, they didn't tarp, they didn't use pesticides, but they may have sort of taken it down. So I'm open to to attempting that to sort of secure the 2,200 square foot space.
Yeah, I mean, I wish Brad was here to kind of say whether or
Yeah.
not that this area
I
is.
just wonder if a few more trees and not try to put the shrubs in or the mix and just mow it all season. Try to starve it that way. I mean, the concept with the tarp obviously is to prevent it from making sugar and feeding those rhizomes. And if you can keep it cut through its growing season, it might take a while, but maybe that would be effective.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? I think all of us agree no pesticides, but Brad's not here to tell us what other than that. So
Sorry,
maybe
no pesticides at all, or no pesticides without an amended NOI?
I think my feeling is that, we're just right now the way it stands is that it's prohibited, right?
Right.
In the buffer zone. So we've been reviewing, we're currently reviewing some here, some applicants who, we've been very, very slow to adapt to any changes with the use of herbicides. But as it is, it's currently prohibited. So to allow it in an administrative fashion, I think I'm not up for that personally, and I don't know if the commissioners.
I think Brad should really be here and give us some alternatives. I mean,
Okay.
we know what the alternatives are, but I think it'd be helpful to have him here to
Okay.
to talk
I think
about it.
And if I can expand on, I would say that we'd probably be open to administrative approval of something that is more, physical removal, mowing, that sort of thing, tarping. I think at least I would be open to administrative approval, so you don't have to go through the permitting process again, of something of that nature. But I think, to approve something that, like I said, is currently prohibited, it would be unprecedented and not something that I, for one, would want to set
Okay.
precedent.
And Will, you're nodding your head too. Is that what you were kind of implying?
yeah, that was what I was trying to say. But Chris said
Sorry.
it better.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify what the question was. Okay. So I guess, Jason, it sounds like, oh, I'm sorry, Kathy, did you have anything else to add before?
No, just that I agree with you all. to
Okay.
do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't see all of your heads nodding.
Sorry.
So yeah, I guess, Jason, would you be open to working with Brad to modify the vegetation management plan for some of maybe a mowing and tarping it during growing season and just repeatedly doing that? And then possibly either during, before, or after installing maybe more trees to create that shade while you do that. So I guess I can relay that to Brad, or you can relay that too. I'll definitely send an email, but would you be open to that in terms of revising the management plan, maybe coming back at either the February 5th meeting or the second meeting in February? And then the commission does seem like they are open to administratively approving this, so you don't have to submit an amended NOI if you take herbicides off the table.
Yeah, I'm open to that. Maybe just a couple questions. One, maybe like in parallel, so it's not sequential. If Brad is, I mean, I without speaking technically, I know he was thinking this is really like the best and most successful path. He thinks that the tarping experiment is just not going to work for the other
Okay.
lot. So just, I'm speaking at a 10,000 foot level, but Brad's the expert and can articulate that. So I'm just wondering if there's other options that maybe the commission could think about. Like, I know we talked maybe 2 times ago about like what would be the equivalent if we put in a couple of trees, but if Brad says like, I have no other recommendations, is there some other creative, options that we could do to, steward the land in the 50-foot buffer or, elsewhere in the property for some plantings and some trees. And I think I heard about like shading the property. I think one thing I would like to avoid, there's a lot of shade that comes from the back of the house. And so we just
Mhm.
stabilized, the lawn. And so not adding so many trees that the entire
Mhm.
backyard is shaded, and then all that sort of stabilization
Yeah,
of
this
the
is a good,
lawn
this is
gets
from
lost.
September. Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so just try to sort of avoid that so it just doesn't become a mud pit.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think we're open to anything, and I
Yeah.
think that the general sense is that I think if herbicides is the way that Brad wants to go, I think it just means we would look at that as a new permit because it's such a such a deviation from what the original plan was, and it's, as I
Yep.
said, it's currently prohibited, and we're really, you know, we haven't really approved much in that regard. A couple small, very small, almost like experiments, as if you will. And we
Yeah.
haven't started approving, on a broader scale at this point. So,
Okay.
alternatively, any physical option, I think we'd be open to, physical removal in any way, tarping or
Yep.
smothering, mowing, smothering with trees, smothering with tarp. I think any of those options, at least from my standpoint, would be fine with
Yeah.
moving administratively.
Okay. Yeah, maybe Jason, we can, or either you, me, or both of us can do this. We can follow up with Brad and say it sounds like the commission would be open to an administrative approval if you were to take herbicides off the table, and if there were any viable option in his opinion, like for
Yep.
physical, mechanical, or something removal. And if not, and if Brad stands by his management plan and says, no, this is really the best. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, did you want an amended permit or a new permit, or are you, I guess I was just curious. It sounds like no administrative approval, but what kind of permitting would the commission want to see?
I guess an amended permit would be fine. It's just as
Okay.
long as I don't know. I don't think it would need to be a completely new
Okay.
permit, and then
Yeah.
just an amended
Okay.
permit. So that
Yeah,
it's
and you can
officially,
resubmit the same plans, Jason. So you, unless the commission disagrees with me, I don't think you would have to go through Brendan. So you could, let's say Brad has no changes to the plan. You can submit the vegetation management plan, the amended NOI form. It's an amended hearing, not a new hearing for the entire project, and then the commission would have to review that in detail and then vote to issue a modified variance with any modified conditions, and then
makes
allow
sense.
use.
That was going to be my question. Is it
Yeah.
the variance? Is it a separate variance because it's a separate request?
I would
Can you
argue,
modify a variance?
so I would argue to amend the 50-foot buffer variance to allow herbicides, and then also to vote on a separate variance of whether you allow herbicides in your jurisdiction. So yeah, I would agree. It's a two different sections in our regulations, so you should look at that. If through an amended request, you look at that through two lenses.
And this is all after Brad
Yeah.
comes to one of the near term, obviously we need to do this or align on something before the growing season, but he comes here and explains like his strong point of view and, just talks a little bit about the pros and cons from what he's seen. Okay.
Good question, Jason. Mr. Chair, would you want us to just have these conversations with Brad on the back end? And if he has a strong stance to stick with herbicides, then just submit an amended NOI. Do we want him to
yeah.
come
I
back to
mean,
explain the mechanical?
if we talk to him and he's he's just going to come here and say just that, then
Mhm.
I don't think we need him to show up to another hearing.
Okay.
We can just
Yeah.
submit the amended. Why?
Okay. But yeah, like if he's open to amending his vegetation management plan to take herbicides off and put in a physical mowing or other type of alternative, then we can continue this discussion to another meeting and bring Brad on.
And
Okay.
and just sorry, and
Sorry,
the goal is to focus on the 2,200 square foot enough to secure that, not to eradicate knotwood from the property. Is that correct?
Another good question. I was going to say, I feel like you would need to eradicate it, right? I mean,
Well,
otherwise it's going to encroach.
That's Yeah,
Well,
because then we're talking,
yeah.
I think honestly, we're talking bigger than the 2,200 square foot
Okay.
as I looked
So I
at it this
guess I
summer.
thought it was just here, Jason. I'm sorry. Can you remind me where the knotweed is also seen on the property? I thought it was just in
I
this
mean,
area.
it is heavy, like your eyes are drawn to that.
Yeah,
There's, I mean, I think there's some on the right side,
on
but
this side.
property, sorry,
Okay.
my right side looking at this,
Oh,
abutting
yours. Okay. So over
number
here.
37. That was
Okay.
way outside of the 50. Sorry, is the green the 100?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I can turn these off. They're not accurate. They're only estimated. So yeah, this is your, yeah.
Yeah, I
But
think
the
there was
wetland is
some
back here.
close to the garage on property 37. I think
Mm,
that looked like,
okay.
not wood when I was mowing the lawn. The actual lawn part, it looked exactly the same. So the only reason
Okay.
I'm asking is there's, I think, going to be a big difference between trying to
Yeah.
get the 25 plants, the 30 pounds of shrub versus eradication. Because as you said,
Hmm.
or no, you noticed that if
Yep.
you go backwards behind the creek, James,
Yeah.
it's there, and both my neighbors have it and are
Hmm.
mowing, kind of ripping things out as they see it. So it's I think a forever thing unless,
Hmm.
Yeah. No,
we,
I would say it's a little ambitious with
Yeah.
to say that it's eradication is how you're going to get to approval. I think it's, establishing
Hmm.
your plants, and if you have a good routine that's managing that and allowing the mitigation plantings to survive for the um that's probably where we'd end up,
okay.
especially if you're in a place where your borders are already infested,
Yeah.
even if you use herbicide, it's just going to be a matter of time before it comes in and then you'd be using it again. So, um, you can only manage what's on your own property, right?
Got it.
So it's like you're
Yeah.
going to be constantly, I'm going to say eradication's not,
Okay.
Feasible. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
not,
So yeah, you would just target getting the knotweed off of your property and installing the mitigation plantings. But we obviously the unfortunately, if you were to try and eradicate it in this entire area, you'd need everybody to submit a notice of intent. We have one of those projects before us right now on South Main
Yeah.
Street. So yeah, okay, that makes yeah.
Maybe in a
Thank you for
couple of
asking that.
years, yeah, we see something amazing happen from these pilots, but
Yeah, I know that's another thing that maybe in a few years we'll have better answers for the residents because you're not the only one who's asked, can I deal with this? What can I do? What are my options? And I feel bad being so pessimistic. So, I think just treating it in this small area or dealing with it in this small area
yep,
is
that's
your
perfect.
best. Yeah, and then you just like in theory if Brad were to allow or if Brad were to approve of a vegetation management plan for mowing, in theory, you would keep that order open so that you can continue to mow it and suppress it and eventually kill it. So it may take you a long time, but we
Mhm.
would, understand that you would need to keep the order open to finish the work.
Yep. And then, right. But the I'm just like thinking what the end state is, not that the Japanese knotwood's gone, but hypothetically the 25 shrubs and the 30 pounds of seed has been distributed and is surviving through a growing season.
Yes. So we would be, I think, for purposes of reviewing with Brad of whether or not he wants to switch to something other than herbicides. He has a 3-year plan in his plan, but I think that doesn't include monitoring. So his plan includes 3 years of treatment, and then you go into the monitoring phase. So maybe after the 3 years of herbicide, for example, you would probably install the plantings after year 3 once the knotweed is pretty much supposedly, apparently eradicated. I don't know. I mean, let's just say it's eradicated. Then you'd
Yeah.
put the plants in, and then you'd be in the monitoring phase where you'd be looking for any knotweed coming up and maybe removing it by hand,
Yep.
and dealing with that or mowing it, whatever Brad has recommended.
Okay.
So yeah, like unfortunately, it would be a long process, possibly most likely more than 3 years. But yeah, again, it sounds like the commission is open to an administrative approval for this if Brad stands behind a physical alternative.
Okay.
and then just again, it's not to say that, if he says herbicides are the only path forward to get this where you want it, you could review that too. I don't know where we stand on that. We still have like I said, we still have a big project in front of us that hasn't been approved. I don't know where it's going to land. But we would just look for an amended NOI submission.
Okay. All right. Sounds like we'll follow up with Brad offline outside of this.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Jason, I can keep this on for February 5th for now, but obviously we'll decide, or we'll talk to Brad and see what he wants to do, and then we'll adjust it.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night. Okay. Next COC, we have NOI 05-14 for 44 and 40 Beechwood Street.
All right. So this one, I will try to be as brief as possible. This has been an extremely hilarious and complicated COC request that I'm going to summarize for you.
Someone in the audience, this person, CJ.
I don't know if they're here for this one. If they are, they can raise their hand. I was just prepared to present this to you guys. So this is a partial COC request for 40 Beechwood Street. So this is related to some after the fact permit work on 44. So there's a little bit of history here. I'll try to be quick. There's a 1998 order of conditions that was issued for a shared septic for 40 and 44. That was issued, approved, a complete COC was issued, Board of Health issued their stuff. Great. So that order is not on this agenda for a reason. And then in 2005, 44 Beechwood Street was doing a lot of apparently unpermitted work on the home that it did include modifying the shared septic that was already closed out and approved by Board of Health and Concom. They were adding an additional treatment tank connected to the shared system because they were adding an addition, all this other stuff. So there was an enforcement order in 2005 after the fact permit. After the fact permit was issued, there is no mention of 40 Beechwood Street anywhere in this entire file. Mindy and I combed this all the way through. The reason why the partial COC is being requested for 40 Beechwood Street is because from a private lender on the buyer's side's perspective, when changes were made on 44 that affected the shared septic, they have an issue with that and they want to see the partial COC issued for 40 Beechwood Street to basically release 40 Beechwood Street from this 2005 permit, even though they had nothing to do with it in the first place. Their argument is because those changes affected the shared septic. There's a whole easement, legal stuff about that. So they're digging their heels in. This is really coming from a private lender side. This is a little unusual for us. Usually in my experience, I'm seeing the registry ask for this or the buyer or seller's attorney asking for this. So in at least from my perspective, I didn't have time to ask town council about this, but I see this is obviously not necessary in my opinion, but to cover and to release 40 of any possible, work that pertains to another property, I don't see any reason not to issue the partial COC for 40. It's really just a weird, complicated housing sale thing. With that being said, a partial COC will not close 44 Beechwood Street's 2005 permit. So it will be the responsibility of the owner of 44 to close out their permit because that permit obviously included more work than just affecting the shared septic system, if that makes any legal sense. But like I said, really the only person requiring this, the party requiring this is the buyer's lender. And it's not coming.
Septic system installed to the plan?
Yes. So the 1998 plan before these changes happened was all approved, COC issued. Great. So 40 and 44 Beechwood Street were all set at the time. COC either was recorded today. It wasn't recorded back in 1999, but that's complete COC. That's done. Then 2005 had that additional treatment tank and the addition, all that other stuff. That, from what we can see in the records with Board of Health, we didn't necessarily find like an additional COC or anything, but we do see correspondence from the Board of Health in 2004 saying you need to submit or deal with a separate treatment tank or something with the changes that they were making to the house. So there's correspondence in the early 2000s with Board of Health. Then you see the enforcement order. Then you see the after the fact permit. Then there's Title V inspections that are very recent as of 2025 and prior. So it seems like based on the Board of Health records, you can definitely imply that Board of Health is the one that said you need to come back to Board of Health in the early 2000s to get this approved. And then there was an issue with Concom where obviously they were operating without a permit in wetlands jurisdiction. So it seems like Board of Health is okay with these changes because we've seen Title V inspections and completion reports and everything. I don't see a specific COC for the treatment tank that was added at 44. And like I said, has nothing to do with 40. But at least based on the records, it looks like there's no issue, at least for the last 20 years. Like I said, this is a weird legal request, and I see no reason why you shouldn't issue it. It's obviously not necessary, but yeah.
So
I know,
it's a
weird.
partial. So the
Partial
request is a partial COC for 40 only.
Yeah, and if actually, I hate to say this, but if you guys, we had some specific language that we looked through with similar legal requests for partial COCs. They're in your motion script. If you were to issue a partial COC, it would be best to maybe go with that language.
Okay.
Just to make sure we're being very clear that we're obviously only doing this to release 40 Beechwood Street. We're not evaluating the compliance of this project at 44.
Okay.
Housing sales are weird.
Got it. All right. I'm pulling up the motion script, or can you pull it up? I'm buried.
If someone can pull it up, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I have it. I can make the motion
Okay.
if you're good with that.
Yeah. Okay.
I make a motion. Sorry.
That's okay.
Make a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance for 40 Beechwood Street related to NOI 0514 for 44 Beechwood Street to release 40 Beechwood Street of this order since no work was conducted at 40 Beechwood Street.
Second. We'll take a roll call vote. Tom Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Will Ashton,
Aye.
and Chris McIntyre, aye. That vote passes 4-0-0. So the partial COC for NOI 05-14 is approved.
Partially closed.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah, that was the weirdest request I've ever gotten. And shared systems seem to have a lot of interesting potential complications. I'll try to go through my updates quickly. 1 Pleasant Street, that one, that was a COC that we granted contingent upon native plantings. I did confirm with the landscape architect and the contractor who installed the plantings that everything is native. It was a honey locust tree that we were looking at. The lime green stuff was actually native sumac. Honey locust is arguably considered native, just so that you guys are aware, but there is conflicting information from native species planting groups that it is invasive in nature. But just to confirm, it's not an invasive species according to the state of Massachusetts. It's not on the prohibited plant list. So we did issue a COC
So
contingent upon that.
It's invasive, but it's not introduced, right?
Correct.
Got it.
Yeah, so it's native more to I think DC, Virginia, West Virginia area. So it is a native species, but unfortunately it does act pretty invasive in nature. It's just not officially considered an invasive plant in Massachusetts, which is so weird. Yeah, not ideal though. We wanted a red maple there, but at least all the plants were native. Did confirm that in writing, and I did get the invoices with all the native plants that were installed. And like I said, the lime green thing that we were questioning was a sumac. I just wanted to make sure it was native, and it was. So yeah, that just to let you guys know, I issued that COC once I got that confirmation. 46 Border Street, you guys remember Atlantica. This has been moving extremely slowly. It has to be done in phases based on the new building code with floodplain and redevelopment. We've been waiting for a couple months just to finally move to phase 2. The building inspector is still, there's things that need to be done for that. So just want to let you guys know that the phase 2 on the western side of the building will start at some point. I need to go out and review the site containment plan because we have to make modifications from what was approved. There's some, concerns from the harbor master and the building inspector that we need to all just be at the site and deal with, but we're not going to do that until the site has been authorized by, John to move on to phase 2. So that one's just slowly moving along. 66 and 70 Black Horse Lane in contrast are actually moving extremely quickly. 70 Black Horse Lane, as you guys know, they need to, they've already been building the house. They've been building the foundation for the pool and everything. They want to start landscaping in the spring. 66 Black Horse Lane also started pretty quickly, a couple months behind, but they're kind of in that same timeline of doing landscaping in the spring. 3A has just been slowly moving along. I will soon get updates as to when they want to start the permanent wetlands alteration and stream relocation work. That's going to be a lot, but I'll let you guys know as soon as I have details on that. In terms of other updates, Mindy and I have finalized on our end what we're calling as our administrative and review checklist. So as you guys know, the stormwater and wetlands regulations have a ton of information of what's required for site plans in the submission. It's a lot of info, but I definitely want to be very adamant with applicants moving forward, and I'll inform you guys when this doesn't happen that they really need to be giving you guys all of this information so that it's not wasting your time. We have to at least open hearings is the legal advice that I've gotten, but technically we do have our discretion to say that we don't want to possibly open or even close hearings until you've done certain things. And that includes submitting to all other applicable boards, not counting a building permit. That's also in the Wetlands Protection Act. So if an applicant comes to you guys and says, oh, we don't know, and we haven't submitted to planning, zoning, et cetera, Board of Health, you guys have every right to continue the hearings and you could even open the hearing and just automatically continue it. So administratively, we're going to be very consistent with that, and we will keep you guys informed on that so that you guys are reviewing things when you need to. Coastal resource area training. So, sorry. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment on the drawings.
Yep.
Can we maybe work out because there's a lot of comments on what should be on the drawings and what shouldn't be and what's not and all that stuff. Can we work out like a template of like maybe one sheet has everything on it and a second sheet has, like Tom asked for, with the old and the new that we looked at today on one of those projects, and that's like a standard thing we send out to everybody so they all have the same 5 or 6 sheets.
I'm sorry, you mean like sorry, you mean on the checklist, like put down like what's required versus recommended or something?
Yeah, so that every submission looks the same, I guess.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, so here's the fun part. When I broke down everything that's required in the stormwater and wetland regs, it's a ton of info.
Yeah.
That's why those plans are extremely clogged. And so like my recommendation to the engineers is pretty much always to say, please split this up, put it on multiple pages, bold the existing and proposed. I have to admit, I'm not trying to call anyone out particularly, but I do get pushback from engineering companies about that because they definitely throw the cost and everything, and none of that respectfully is my business or my jurisdiction. But yeah, so I think if the commission were to agree on that too, of like, this is everything that's required, this is how we'd ideally like to see it, trying to encourage more consistency in the plans. I think, yeah, I'm happy to look into that. But yeah, I'll send you guys the administrative checklist just so you guys can see it. I don't necessarily know if it should be public or is going to be public. I want to just kind of reiterate that we're looking at this first, and we pretty much just copied everything from the regs. And I'm just going to mentally like boom, 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 go down the list. I'm sorry I didn't do that for these first 2 for 2026, but because I quite frankly forgot. But yeah, moving forward, this is what I want to do. And then another recommendation in terms of review. Now, unfortunately, the language says should and not shall, but I do want you guys to look at the language for sites. They should be setting the site up for me 5 days before the meeting so that I can go to the site and see limit of work, buffer zones, etc. Now, this is another area that I've been getting severe pushback on for the last 4 years. I told the major engineering companies as of 2026, I'm going to consistently request this. I can't necessarily require it, but that is something I do want to make changes to our regs, because I think as a commission, you guys really should understand where the work is happening. It's one thing to look at it on the plans, but to see it on the site, that's a whole other thing. Like where you can see elevations and contours and just areas of disturbance and what's coming out. And I'd be open to discussions on the private end if you guys were open to either walking sites or whatever. I mean, I know that's more coordination, and I wouldn't necessarily want to be like, everyone go on their own, but we do get them to sign the permission to access site form, and we do say agent or commissioners. So not that I want to put more work on your guys' plate, but in theory, we really should be seeing the sites staked out so that if you guys were to walk the site, requesting a site visit or not, or going on your own, you really should see where everything is staked out and understanding the impact of projects. That's always been in the regs, by the way. And then coastal resource area training. So I actually reached out to CZM, Coastal Zone Management Office. They do offer technical assistance and training to Concom's. I had reached out to someone from CZM who was open to potentially coming to the commission and maybe giving us a Q&A or a presentation. The reason why I'm looking into this is because, as you guys have noticed, we've seen a handful of projects now in Coastal Bank, retaining walls, etc. Those are very complicated regs. And also, you guys may know what's coming up the pipeline. The land subject coastal storm flowage changes are coming. We just don't know when. So that might be why everyone is trying to get these things in before the regs change. So yeah, you heard a term tonight. It was called LIMWA. That is part of what will soon be known as these updated coastal regulations that will go into the Wetlands Protection Act. That's related to splitting up the floodplain into even more sections of review, where you're going to have a velocity zone. The A zone will be split into a moderate wave action and a minimal wave action area. And the LIMWA will be the limit of the minimal or moderate wave action area. So you're going to start to see a lot more complication broken down in the floodplain. And I can't give you an exact timeline on that, but that's why I kind of want to encourage some educational stuff of all the other coastal resources before we absorb that onto our plates and every other commission. And then last but not least, we had previously gotten some feedback from the previous town manager, without being too specific, that he was encouraging the Conservation Commission to receive more training from town council. He never gave us specifics before he left. If the commission were open to that in terms of having a Q&A session with town council, I'm always happy to do that and schedule it for a meeting like this where we don't have much on our agenda. But if the commission feels like they don't need that and they just want to maybe continue bringing on Alex if we need to, I put him on obviously tonight as a backup in case anything got ugly. So yeah, I'm open to that. I'm definitely going to work with Jason Bertner from CZM about the coastal resource. But if anyone feels strongly about talking to council about any specific items or things that relate to our, purview, just let me know. Sorry, that's it.
Thank you, Charlotte. Yeah, I'd love to hear from coastal zone management and council if they, I don't have anything specific for council to.
Yeah, I never got specifics, unfortunately, so I'm just going to leave it open-ended if you guys wanted to just book some time with town council in a public meeting setting.
Sure. Let's start with the coastal zone management folks.
Agreed. I only had one 48-hour update. You guys saw my email about 10 Quanahasset Trail. It's an administrative stormwater permit. There are wetland areas further down. So it does not appear that this project is within wetlands jurisdiction. I'm just confirming that as part of my review process. But overall, the project is proposing an ADU. So if you guys, I think a few of you have already emailed me. So if you guys have any questions, just let me know. It obviously doesn't need a hearing, but I'd like to send them to you guys just so that you can review them if with any comments. But my decision deadline is February 4th.
Is it a impervious or is it just a regular path, like a walking trail?
They're not proposing, an ADU, affordable dwelling unit. Sorry.
Oh, no, sorry.
Yep,
that one.
sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, at least on the plans, it doesn't look like they're proposing any driveway or anything like that. It's literally just the ADU on the property with a deck and infiltration. Yeah, if you guys, with administrative permits, I just email them to you guys and I tell you guys my decision deadline because it's 21 days upon receipt.
Yeah.
So a few of you have already emailed me. Right? What's up?
You just sent that today?
Yep. Yeah, and also I think there may have been a Microsoft outage, so a lot of my emails just popped up at 7:30. I don't know if that happened to you guys, so that may have been why maybe you didn't see it.
I'm getting these work emails right now.
Yeah. And does anyone else have 48-hour stuff to bring up or? No,
I don't. No.
Okay. I have one really brief announcement, but it's more of like a personal update. So can I turn the recording off?
Please, yeah.
Okay. Do we want a motion to adjourn first and then I'll just turn the recording off?
Anyone else? Any 48-hour issues, anyone? Then I'll make a motion to adjourn for the evening.
Second.
Thank you. Take a voice vote then. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Charlotte.
All right. 1 sec.